Hello and welcome to another episode of The Clever Dev. What we're going to be looking at today is an animation library called Framer Motion. And Framer Motion has really been increasing in popularity within the last year. It's a couple years old. They recently had a major release a couple months ago and added a lot of new features, so you'll probably be hearing more about it. So I want to go over the docs today and show an example of how to build an animation with Framer Motion, and then in the show notes I'll actually have links to a couple more animations that I'll quickly show you, but for the sake of time won't be building them out today. So anyway, what I really like about Framer Motion's docs is that they're divided into three parts. The left is a nav tree, pretty typical, but it's actually pretty easy to get to the core ideas of Framer Motion with their nav tree. So the core ideas are animations and transitions, which are coupled together here under the animation section. And then there's also gestures, which are custom event listeners. And then there's some hooks also, and those are in the motion values and utilities and so on. So with that said, looking actually within the animations here, and the thing that I like about what Framer Motion has done with their docs is they're very visual. So with the animation section, we see that there's typical text-based explanations of how to use the library, and that's necessary, it's important, but for many people it's not really the primary way that they're going to learn. So what I really like is that they've given a lot of screen real estate to the examples. Really, example code is what we need. I personally am a visual learner. With coding, I really need examples, and I really need to just get coding and throw some code into my app and just see what it does in order to really feel like I understand a library. So Framer Motion really handles that well, and I feel like the library is really accessible. One thing I will mention is sometimes their API docs are a little bit light on, sometimes there's things that I think should be in them but are not in them. One example would be there's a transition called yo-yo, and it just makes a transition happen, and then it reverses, and it goes infinitely if you wanted to. That, as far as I have looked, is nowhere to be found in the docs. However, in the resources in the video notes, I'll link to some third-party resources that I found that I have no relationship with. They've just been very thorough, and honestly, I'd say even more thorough than the API docs here, which is kind of funny, but it's just an excellent resource, and it's called Framer Book. So with that said, I want to take a quick note of the Framer Motion download count. So this is being recorded in October 2020, and we can see that the weekly downloads are running at about 212,000. And incredibly, just 1 year ago, it was only running at about 28,000 a week, or 24,000 a week. That's really impressive that they've increased about 9 or 10 times their amount a year ago. So like I said before, I really think Framer Motion is getting some traction. I think it's a smart move to learn this framework right now. So a couple animations that I'll be showing you, we'll build this one together. There is, it utilizes the drag gesture, as you can see. And then when it's dragging, I've got this circle in here that's an SVG, and the size of the circle is decreasing or increasing depending on the direction, and it observes the drag value, the X value of the drag. So that's all made relatively straightforward with Framer Motion. And like I said, we'll build that together over here. I've got just a setup little app. I want to mention I've got two more animations that you can see here, and both of them I have mentions of them in the show notes, just links to the code and links to kind of a write-up of how to get them done. So I just want to give you more resources than sometimes a video allows for. So what this one's doing is it's randomly generating X and Y coordinates and changing the color of the future X and Y value that this ball is going to go to. It changes the color based on the Y value, as you can see here. And then this one, it's kind of like animation stacking. It uses keyframes to get a couple different animations and simulate this bouncing ball that squishes when it hits the ground and springs back up. Alright, so with that said, let's jump into some code here. Go into Visual Studio here. So what I've done so far is I've just done a little bit of setup. I've imported Framer Motion, and that's all. In terms of, that's all you need in terms of your package JSON. So I do have a couple of divs set up. So you'll see that they're called motion.div. That's a Framer Motion kind of specific div, like a custom div for Framer Motion. It allows you to have a few more transitions and so on that you'd normally be able to accomplish. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of code, and I will show you how to get the proper styling in here, how to get that drag implemented, and so on. So with that said, I'm not going to do anything. This is just kind of a containing div here. This inner div is where we will put the drag, and then we'll add an SVG inside of it that is what receives the circle size and grows as our drag changes our X value. So the styling that we have so far is nothing Framer Motion specific, and it's just some setup that I wanted to get out of the way so that we wouldn't have to do it in the video. So with that said, let's keep going here. What we want to do is we want to get our drag implemented, and our drag is going to be acting on our X value. I'm going to go ahead and set our X equal to X value. Okay, so we need a value for that to key off of. Let's get a const up here. So we've got this motion value, it's set to 0, and now our motion div can key off of that, and it will animate our X accordingly. So now let's go ahead and add in some positioning on this. And we want the top and the left to be somewhat dynamic because we want to center this, but we want to center it and take into account the circle size when we're centering it. So I'll add in a calc value here. And I'm going to use, let's say, a variable called circle size. So I haven't created it yet. We'll get it set up here in a minute. So let's use our top and our left, and that's how we will set our div here to be in the center, and that div will actually have the SVG that we care about, that's visual, and that we look like we're dragging. So let's create that circle size. Okay, so what we're going to do for our circle size, we'll create a const circle size, and we'll set it equal to, we'll use this use transform hook. So use motion value and use transform are both custom hooks within Framer Motion. So we're gonna feed this use transform our X value, and what we're going to do with use transform is we're going to give it a range of values that it can accept and a range of values that it can transform to. So let's take a look at this for a second. So I'm going to say that when our ball is dragged to the left 100 pixels or to the right 100 pixels, feed that into this use transform and transform it to the values between 50 and 150. So if we drag all the way to the left to a negative 100, we'll return a value of 50 from this use transform. If we drag all the way to the right, which is a value of 100, we'll receive a value of 150 from this use transform. So that's a difference of 100 over here, of 200 over here. So that kind of gives you a 2-to-1 ratio of input to output. So with that circle size, that gives us something to then key off of. But first, it's always good to just go ahead and run your code, make sure everything looks good. Let me inspect this, make sure there's no errors popping up. Seems okay so far. So even though we're not seeing anything, that's okay. I've got a transparent background on this. Let's go ahead and add our drag here. So we're saying drag on X only. Or in other words, don't drag up and down. Don't drag on the Y value. Let's add some drag constraints here. This will give us kind of a snappiness, so it'll snap back into position. So it's a little confusing because it seems like that would be a maximum and a minimum that we can drag, but that's not actually what it does. It just snaps it back. And we'll give it this while tap. All that does is gives our cursor the grab icon, or the grab symbol, the grab icon. And you know what, I'll go ahead and add that in the style too. Seems to be unhappy with something there. Just let it refresh and see what it's thinking. Oh, I've already got the cursor value in. That's all. Easy enough. So I'm glad that we already had that in there. All right, so I think I've got pretty much everything done on this motion div. Let's go ahead and add in our SVG down here. And I'm just going to set a view box on it so that it's got some sizing to it. Let's say 0, 0, 300, 300, give it a decent size there. Go ahead. Close my element tag there. Close it up there as well. Alright, so we got that. And inside of here, we're going to use what's called motion.circle. So motion circle, it's just like the circle SVG. However, it's just got some additional things to it, some additional props that it can accept, for example. So let's put a fill on here, make it white, and we'll set this circle to the center of the SVG. Okay, now let's see what we've got so far. See what's rendered up, how it's looking over here. Okay, nothing yet, but that's probably because we don't really have any sizing. We've set our circle position, but now we need some sizing to it. So I could give it a fixed size. Let's just make sure that that's playing well. Kill that. Probably missing something right here. Let's see. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and actually feed it this circle size. So that's what our ultimate goal is right here, is to give it a value based on the circle size that we're getting something from drag, or we're doing the drag animation, and that's transforming a Y value and ultimately spitting up the circle size. So first, let's do a refresh. Okay, not seeing anything. So let's go through our code, make sure we haven't missed anything. And I suspect I probably missed something on this motion div, so let's give that a quick look. Got our X, got our top, got our left. These are all good things. When all else fails, go in here, take a look at your DevTools. Make sure you're seeing everything that you're supposed to be seeing. Looks like it is probably not quite the right spot. Okay, maybe it's a sizing issue here. So let's take a look at our SVG here. Zero, 300, 300, that looks good. see, this looks good. Line by line. We should have changed there. So we've got our motion div, got the style on it, got background. Oh, we need our width and our height on it, of course. Let's base our width on this circle size that we just added. See if that helps. So it makes sense to have, we're actually doing the grab on this motion div, and we've got this SVG in there. It's kind of got an illusion of doing the grab on the SVG, but as our SVG, our circle gets smaller, we want that actual div we're grabbing on to also get smaller. So that's good. Okay, so that's looking better that it's got that value on it. So still want it to be in a better spot. Okay, so let's look at the circle size that we started to add. See, right now we're in the top left corner here. That's not actually where we want to be. So we want to be in the center, which is what I had initially attempted to do here. But the thing is, with circle size is actually what's known as a motion value. So use motion value actually returns a motion value. So does transform, returns a motion value object. So with circle size, we actually want to do a .get to get a numeric object. That's the value we care about. So now you see I added that .get. I'm actually getting numbers that are reasonable for getting it into the center of our viewing area here. So with that said, that's really all there is to it to get a pretty straightforward animation. Barring a few errors on my part where I just, left something not quite completely coded, it's really pretty straightforward. This whole animation, which is really kind of two animations in one, less than 40 lines of code. So I mentioned that there are two other animations that I have links to code for in the show notes, so definitely take a look at those. And also, if you like the video, then please do subscribe. It really motivates me and keeps me excited about doing these videos, and I hope that the video helps. Thank you.